While we know a great number of small businesses had a very difficult time during COVID, some entrepreneurs, and I'm going to come back to that word in a moment because we overuse that word, but these entrepreneurs found this is the right time to start a new venture. We're joined now by Jim McKelvey, a serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Square and the author of the Innovation Stack, Building an Unbeatable Business One Crazy Idea at a Time. Go buy this book, folks, because I have to tell you, and I don't often say that about many things, I'm obsessed with the book. The stories are kind of, funky, and it plays with your head. And Jim, I just want to say it's great to see you. I wanted to have this discussion because, you make the point in the book that we overuse the word entrepreneurs, that entrepreneurs are usually, that man or woman that's charging off the field the wrong direction when everybody else going the other way, or they're obsessively, compulsively, tied into one thing and no one's paying attention. I mean, and they're solving problems. And I've used your book today as a frame to discuss many of these issues. Cities trying to solve problems, one after another, one after another, one after another. Because the methodology you talk about, which I'd love you to elucidate a little bit, is one that I think we've become careless about, and would love to get your thoughts about how the innovation stack, or this kind of problem solving as we get into to fix things within the coming way of text, and thinking about human people and jobs and how they fit in there. Please help us have a new frame that I think is very important.
Yeah, so when I started to write the book, I realized that I didn't have the word that I needed in the English language, which was a word to describe people in business who weren't doing what everybody else was doing. And it turns out that was the original definition of the word entrepreneur. And when I discovered that, I was like, oh my God, 150 years ago, they had the same problem, which was they needed a way to separate all the people who were doing, sort of normal, rational businesses, like, opening up coffee shops and opening up accounting firms and, doing construction and, laying asphalt, from this group who were doing things that were totally new. And so the original meaning of the word entrepreneur was somebody who was doing something totally new. And it's a different set of rules, Steve. Like, what happens when you're doing something totally new, at a fundamental level, you don't get the security of copying something else that is very similar that works. So you just don't want to be the first person in the in the test group, right? But if you're an entrepreneur in the classic sense, you're going to have to be. In other words, you're going to have to do something for which there is no known solution. And the world of rules that you can confront in that situation is totally different. And so when I wrote the book, what I was trying to do was section off this world that I spent a lot of time in, where I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody else knew what I was doing. There were no experts or consultants or degrees or any sort of comfort in knowing that the direction that my team and I were pursuing was correct. And so that's what the Innovation Stack is all about. And the title came just from this interesting sort of coincidence that I noticed, because I started studying companies throughout history, and I noticed that there was this group of companies who, because they couldn't copy what was done previously for various reasons, ended up all doing the same thing, building these things that were called innovation stacks, and they ended up dominating their industries. So I just thought this was super interesting and actually sort of super encouraging, because if you think about the world of the entrepreneur, when you're actually the first person doing something, it's also the world where nobody can be an expert. In other words, we're all qualified, or I should say, we're all equally unqualified to do something new.
No, I mean, this is the great thing, Jim. I've always respected you. We've known each other for a long time, but I didn't know how unqualified you were to be doing what you were doing until I read the book. And it was just one of these really interesting things. I'll just tell our audience that Jim, was a glassblower, got in this issue, realized it was hard for small businesses, not only small businesses, but just people to sell their talents to folks, in credit card land, or to do global transactions, or to do anything, that they were cut out of the system. Tens of millions, scores of millions of people were cut out of the system. And so you violated the law. I mean, I won't get into all the book, but I mean, you basically created, with Jack Dorsey, who worked for you, you gave him his first job really in it, like at one level, and we won't go into that, but later you guys teamed up and did this. And Amazon came out to kill you. Amazon came in to trounce you, and they couldn't do it. And that's the That's part of the story. Then you found lots of patterns of that happening before. And Amazon on Halloween, just to give you the tension, folks out there, sent all of its clients, when Amazon waved the white flag, it sent all of its clients the Square to use on their phones so that they could do charges. So it's an incredible story, but it's more than just kind of a boutique story. It's about a pattern of how you beat this mammoth company that was trying to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, if it had just been Square, it would not have been interesting as a book. What happened to my company when Amazon attacked us, we fully expected to die. I mean, that because up until that point, when Amazon attacked the startup always lost. It was 100% true. And Square was the first company to survive a direct attack by Amazon as a startup. And I was amazed. And when it was all over and Amazon had relented, I then was bothered by the fact that I thought, well, this is so weird. I wonder if it's ever happened to anybody else. And so what I did was I started looking through history. And sure enough, if you sort of leave the tech world and are willing to look throughout different industries and throughout different times and different countries, you'll see a lot of the same things happen, which is these entrepreneurs, these innovative companies that build these innovation stacks often get attacked, sometimes by competitors, sometimes by governments. But there's usually this vicious battle. And this tiny little thing that you wouldn't imagine survives. And then it thrives and it grows. And that's, in fact, what's happened at Square, but it's also happened at hundreds of other companies. And this is such an interesting pattern because, as somebody who's lived through it, I saw it from the inside, but then to actually sort of study it academically was super interesting. And it's actually, I think, a pretty positive message. So I was happy to share that with the world.
I want to, ask you kind of a cosmic question, because I don't remember the name of the company that preceded this that you built, but it was my understanding you basically took, trade show stuff and put it on CD-ROMs, and it's an early industry, and you were trying to fix some problems. This young, Marsha's son, guy named Jack, came to work for you. You ignored him for 40 minutes. Ends up it's Jack Dorsey as a teenager, and he did some all-nighters with you. But the point is, Jack may have been innately capable in certain ways, but what you get from your little small operations that turned out to be really well was a willingness to be unconventional, a willingness to take risks. And a lot of our conversation today has been talking about classic and conventional jobs, jobs that are paid for. But I'm just interested in also talking about surfing opportunities, taking risks, which I know, not everyone can do. But, the stories that I'm looking at where you basically had no money, putting things in there, crazy ideas. Have you ever thought about, because I've talked about you today, you've also given people mid-career who've had health problems, who've gone out and been badly trained at their local, St. Louis community college and helped turn them into world-class coders. But as you, trying to look at this thing of how to give people the wherewithal and the confidence to take risks, as opposed to pursuing jobs and livelihood more conventionally.
Well, so I think one of the things that I always preach is that it's not a hero story. And one of the things that I think we get taught is that these people who are super successful or, somehow have done amazing things are somehow different than we are. He was a genius, or she was gifted, or they have this incredible work ethic, or, there's some sort of superlative that differentiates that person from us. And I think the media tends to portray these people, in sort of glowing terms because that kind of sells product. But these hero stories do a really bad thing because they make us feel like we're not capable of doing it. And what I found in my research was that, quite the opposite was the case, which is that the people who were the heroes of these stories, the people who built these, mega successful businesses and, dominated industries, were all pretty normal, flawed human beings. I'll put myself in that category. And we were all able to succeed because we got a hold of a very, very powerful set of tools. And it wasn't that we were superheroes. It was, or I guess if we were superheroes sort of like Batman is. Batman doesn't have any, sort of superpowers. He just got a lot of really cool stuff, So if you want to be a superhero, it's possible to be Batman. It's not possible for bullets to bounce off your chest.
Well, Jim McKelvey, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Square, author of one of the best books that I've read this past year, Innovation Stack, Building an Unbeatable Business, One Crazy Idea at a Time. I love the stories. I love your writing style as well. It's very irreverent. And you help me understand Elon Musk is just like any other person. So, Jim McKelvey, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you'll come back because I want to continue this conversation.
Anytime. Thank you, Steve.